Welcome to Vermonters in Business, where we highlight some of the very best business leaders in our state and the amazing things they're doing in their communities. People of Vermont, welcome to Vermonters in Business, where our mission is to highlight the businesses and business leaders in our state that are doing both outstanding work in their communities and in their careers. We have a great show today. I am very excited. This is a very unique guest for us, Travis.
Yes,
it's
definitely
outside of the realm of where we've been typically having folks.
Yep.
And I love it that it's just going to kind of, spread it out a little bit. We're going to talk about some cool stuff.
Yes.
As always, I am your co-host, Drew Kinney. I am a business owner in the state of Vermont, a seventh-generation Vermonter, and I have an investment portfolio in the state as well with rental properties. Love all things Vermont. Joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Travis Spencer. Travis is king of the hot take.
I am.
And around here, we know him as a world-class insurance agent. Travis, how are we doing today? What do you got on the hot take table for us?
I got a hot take, and it's good. I'm trying to make these appropriate to kind of our guests, and since, Matt's an outdoor enthusiast, I always find it interesting that we're in this world now where you need a special uniform for any type of physical activity you do.
Okay.
I always love looking at old pictures of people on top of Mount Mansfield, black and whites, and the women are in their dress and the men are in their suit. But now I just feel like anything you do, you have to have a special uniform now to go outside. Yeah. So that's my hot take for the day.
All right. I like it. It's kind of like, like during hunting season, the big thing is that, you have all the camo and the no scent and all the stuff. And
right.
People will be like, oh, my grandfather hunted in his red flannel and his LL Bean boots and
exactly
and was good,
Yeah.
That's
now
awesome.
You need a small loan to just prepare to go outside. So.
Well, joining us today is Matt Williams with the Catamount Trails Association. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Matt is originally from Sharon, Vermont, and he currently resides in Moortown, Vermont, and he's been with the Catamount Trails Association for 6 years now.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Tell us a little bit about how you got started at the Catamount Trails Association.
How did I get started? I've been skiing since I could walk, basically.
Yeah.
And I've always loved it. I've always, grew up skiing out my door, hiking out my door, mountain biking, playing hockey.
Yeah, nice.
Pond hockey, all sorts of stuff, and so I've always loved being outside, and a lot of the things I've done in my career have, at least in retrospect, been had some element of getting people outside and helping people enjoy the outdoors, and I think there's something really magical about being out in the woods, being out in the backcountry, the relationships that you can build, the friendships that come out of those experiences, the community that can be built, the connection to place and landscape. from Vermont. My family's been here for a long time. It's place is really important, and connection to the landscape is really important, and so it's it's a way to build that. And so when I was sort of in a transition point in my life anyway, and this job came up, and for me it was a total dream to get to work for an organization that has done so much over the last 40 years to build recreational infrastructure in Vermont, get people outside, and to be a part of that legacy, and hopefully move it forward in some interesting ways. And so.
So was your family a big ski family? Is that why you got started so early?
Yeah, both my parents were skiers, and had ski bummed in Stowe in their 20s, and so I was lucky enough to live in places in Vermont where there was some access to ski areas and ski programs at school, but I could also just ski out my door, and had little wax the skis and could just go tromp around in the woods and explore. And that's always been one of my favorite things to do.
So I started skiing when I was 2, so you beat me by a little while. But pretty much the whole reason I did was because they would take my brother and my sister to the mountain to go skiing, and I didn't want to be left behind, and so they had to take me with them, or else the rest of the family couldn't go. Now I got sucked into sports and everything else down the road later in life, so I didn't quite quite stick with it probably as long. And I ski now, but probably couldn't, not quite the skier I could have been if I had really focused on that from all the way through. But so I can somewhat relate to starting when you're young. It's just something that's kind of ingrained in you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, when we start every show, we have what we call the Vermont Hot Seat. Are you ready to jump into the Vermonter Hot Seat?
Sure.
All right. Pancakes or waffles? What are you having with your Vermont maple syrup?
Pancakes, but I have a 3-year-old son who is a big waffle fan, so
nice.
he often wins out these days.
Yep, that'll happen. That's usually how it goes.
Yep.
All right, I probably know the answer to this one, but I'll ask it anyways. Perfect day for you. Is it a winter day at the mountain or a summer day at the lake?
Both are fun, but I'll take winter.
Yep. And it's your birthday dinner. You can go to any restaurant in the state. Where are you headed?
Oh, man. That's a hard one. I'll go for that. My birthday's in the spring, so I'll go for that like lake day, and I'll grab some food from Canteen Creamy in Waitsfield and take it to the shore.
I like it.
That's
that
great.
might segue into our next question. It's a hot summer day. What's your creamy order? And from where?
This one's an easy one. Maple creamy from Red Hen in Middlesex.
Oh, okay, nice.
Where they make their own waffle cones.
Oh, very cool.
Which are pretty delicious.
That's awesome. Let's
Yeah.
check
We
it
gotta
out.
add this to the tour.
Yeah.
We decided we have to do a creamy tour now from all the places people tell us.
Yeah.
We had
I've done the
there's
list
been
for
like
sure.
a couple of hot spots for sure, but then it seems like everybody almost has a unique one. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's the Vermont Hot Seat, so it's not too challenging. So you survived it. All right, Travis, let's jump on into it.
Yeah, so Catamount Trails Association, 40 years. Tell us what the Catamount Trails Association is all about and the mission.
Great. So the Catamount Trail is an end-to-end backcountry ski trail that runs the length of the state. It's 320 miles long, goes from the Massachusetts border all the way up to Canada, and links all sorts of Nordic ski centers, village centers, inns, all along the way. And it was conceived first skied in 1984 and conceived by 3 friends, Steve Bushy, Ben Rose, and Paul Jarris. And Steve was a cartographer, map maker, geography buff, map enthusiast, and the 3 of them were just adventure buddies, and they do bike trips across the country and winter camping trips, and just every weekend they were like, where are we going, what are we doing? And so I think they were on a bike trip and sort of like, okay, what's the next adventure? And Steve got really into this idea, we should ski the length of Vermont. It had been done before, but I think somebody had skied the Long Trail before, maybe, and it'd been but they, Steve spent a couple of years putting together a route, linking up the existing networks, finding corridors. They put together, sponsors and got a bunch of publicity and did this ski. And what was unique about their effort was that they said, we're going to do more than just ski and get some sponsors and do this cool adventure. We're going to start an organization.
Yep.
And so I think it was actually the day before they started their ski, they got their letter of determination from the IRS, and we're an official nonprofit.
That's awesome.
And so from the very first day, the idea was we're going to ski this route to prove the viability, as a proof of concept, to get people excited, and we want to leverage that to build this trail. And they founded a nonprofit organization. It took 25 years to build the trail and make it something that was marked end to end, where we had permission. We could map it, promote it, all those sorts of things. It was, it's become this incredible community-driven project, and local volunteers have taken up sections, scouted the route, established it, worked with landowners. So we just work with this incredible network of landowners, municipalities, state and federal government, all these people, hundreds of volunteers to make it happen, and over the years, the organizations continue to evolve, and at this point, we're really the trail is still core to what we do, but we manage a whole network of backcountry ski terrain with chapters, and we're really focused on how do we get more people outside? And so trails and terrain are part of that. Conservation work to make sure that this infrastructure, particularly on private land, is protected, that it's not, we don't just lose access when the property sells. And then a whole suite of programs.
Immediately what popped into my head.
Yeah.
You know, and it's I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but that seems like
it's
really
80% private land, right?
Yeah.
You can't have statewide rec infrastructure without private landowners. It's an incredibly generous thing for a private landowner to open up their land to the general public to say, come and use it. And so, we're incredibly grateful and fortunate that they do that. Over 260 of them across the state.
Right.
And we do a lot of work to steward those relationships. But easements, long-term lease agreements, all these sorts of things come into play. And it's a long-term project. That's, an even bigger step for a landowner to say, I'm going to let you on, and also I'm going to put it in the deed that you can be here forever, right? That's not a small thing. And so it takes a long time, and not everybody's willing to do it, but that's a big part of the mix. And then we have this whole suite of programs to get people outside. And so we have a Youth Learn to Ski program that's entirely free, that's focused on underserved communities, that gets close to 1,500 kids a year out skiing.
That's
we have
incredible.
community ski days, we have tours, we do all these sorts of things to say, we know trails are great. Catamount Trails free to use.
Yeah.
All the backcountry zones are free, but just because it's free, you need somebody to sometimes, to just invite you into it and say, come on out and let's have some fun.
Yeah.
And you kind of pivoted to something I was going to ask later, but we can talk about it now. I grew up in Maine on a dairy farm, lots of fields and woods, and I was a Nordic skier as a youth, and I kind of got away from it. But when I had kids, we always were outside. I know Drew does a lot of work, your family being outside.
Yeah.
So those programs are great because, to your point earlier, there's just something special about being out in the woods, being in contact with nature. Do you think we're in this, it's access, like you talk about people who aren't familiar with the winter. Do we blame technology for some things? Are we the old guy in the room who's like, technology's ruining it? So, but do you think that's a hurdle now for getting people outside?
It's actually kind of funny that you asked that, because I was trying to think back when you were telling about how the trail was founded. I was like, could three friends get together and decide that they wanted to do this today, or would they just be way too many distractions? And it wouldn't be like, what should we do? Like, what's the next adventure? And they're like, I know, we're going to ski all of Vermont.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I feel like I'm sort of in your boat too. Like, I'm like, I was like, young enough to grow up without internet when I was
exactly.
Like when we finally got it, was dial-up. I didn't have a cell phone, and so it definitely feels different. I don't know. I think it's probably hard to blame that for everything, but I do think it certainly hasn't gotten less important to try to pull kids outside, and I think that it's probably a lot of things, but I don't know. I'm inclined to feel like that at least has some part in it.
Right.
And
no great answer for sure.
Lots of things that probably
hard to measure,
but I mean, I'm definitely a big believer that more people spending more time outside is a good thing for all of us.
Yep.
And you guys do a lot of events. You just had an event to raise awareness about the CTA and also to fundraise. Tell us about some of the events you do during the year.
Yeah. Again, it's like, let's get people outside having a good time, right? And hopefully support the organization at the same time. So this year was a really unique winter in that it was our 40th anniversary, and the three founders of the trail actually came back.
Awesome.
And did a through ski of the trail with a few friends. Unfortunately, they had to pull the plug at Trap Family Lodge. They skied the first 2 weeks plus and got to Traps, which is in Stowe, the first weekend in March, and just ran out of snow. Anybody who's in Vermont knows that it was it's been a pretty rough end to the winter this year, and we did get some snow, but at that point, they were basically looking at hiking the vast majority of the last 100 miles to Canada, and that's not what the trail's built for, and not what anybody has signed up for, and so they're going to come back next winter and finish it up. But we do all sorts of events. We run a whole suite of tours every winter where that are mostly free, and so that's a chance to just go ski a section of the trail or a great backcountry ski spot with somebody local who knows the terrain and is leading the tour, and it's a great way to meet people. other people who want to ski in your area or to check out a part of the state you don't know. We run a weekly event at Bolton Valley Ski Resort on Tuesday nights. It's sort of like skiing, evening laps and skimo event there. With Vermont Splitboard Association, we do a Split Fest event where people can come try out equipment. That's another really great way for snowboarders to get into the backcountry. But there's often that the gear is really specific and specialized, and great chance for people to try that out. So lots of stuff like that. That's really just focused on getting people outside, and we're always sort of playing with those, playing around with them and trying new stuff out, and just trying to get creative.
Right.
So
what is usually the timeline for if you were to try to ski from the bottom to the top? What is that? I mean, I'm sure it varies by ability, right?
Well, it's interesting. I think these days, statistically, sort of mid-February to mid-March is really the best, month-long snow window. But obviously, we know it's really variable.
Right.
Realistically, actually, probably the best snow this year was in November. That early season, stretch. We had 3 or 4 weeks there where the snow was really good and it filled in up high, and that might have been the best window. But January's been a little trickier. We've been getting those thaws around Christmas, so it's.
But if somebody's planning it, how long does it usually take?
Most people actually ski it in sections over years.
Makes sense,
and so, a lot of people will say, they'll come up to Vermont for a week a year and they'll ski a bunch of sections, or, they'll do a few weekends every year and they'll pick some sections, and they have a crew that they're doing it with. And so the vast majority of people ski it that way.
Okay.
We typically have, 1 or 2 people a year who ski end to end in one straight shot.
Yeah.
There was a guy from Stowe this year, actually, who set the fastest time ever on the trail. And he skied it in under 7 days, which is pretty darn impressive.
Yeah.
So he's a pretty national class endurance skier, has done big races all over the world. But we've had a lot of people ski it in that 2-week window. So they're doing a section or 2 a day and skiing it in 2.5 weeks, something like that.
Very cool.
We've had some people camp along the way, the whole way. Some people staying in. There's lots of different ways to do it. I think that's one of my favorite things about it is that there's really no right way to ski it. There's no wrong way to ski it. And it's really not just one thing. There are sections that are mostly at Nordic touring centers that are groomed. There are sections that are, on old railroad grades that are, pretty mellow and really great, like your first time, sort of off trail. Off of groomed trail, there are some really challenging backcountry sections, over the spine of the greens that get you out in the middle of nowhere, that are really steep, that offer great opportunities to get some turns in, stuff like that. And so there's sort of something for everybody out there.
Nice. In regards to maintenance and volunteer work, I assume you rely heavily on volunteers to come out, do that off-season work.
Would not be possible without volunteers. Yeah. So we have about 60 plus volunteers who have adopted sections of the Catamount Trail, and so they're sort of our local point people.
Okay.
And they take care of most of the seasonal maintenance. So we go out in the fall and we run trail days on every section, and we're clearing blowdowns, making sure the signage is in good shape, making sure it's ready to go for the winter. So it's those 60 point people that sort of organize that on a local level, and obviously hundreds of people come out and help them and support them. Then we have the chapter network that's getting the backcountry zones ready. That's a whole other group of people. And so it's thousands of hours of volunteer maintenance every year. And what the office does is sort of help to coordinate that, help to promote it, and then we come in on bigger projects. So, this past summer we had a 50-foot bridge replacement project in the Mad River Valley that we had to do, and that you've got engineers involved and contractors and all that state permitting and all those sorts of things. And so that's when the office will come in and we'll run that project and make that sort of infrastructure.
So the whole trail gets eyes on it then in the off season. It's not like, oh, we're just doing this piece this year.
No, the whole thing gets and it is a backcountry trail, right? things happen. We get early season windstorms, or sometimes we'll get those really heavy snows at the beginning of the year, and all these like small birches and saplings will get bent over, and all of a sudden the trail's really hard to follow in places. And there's only so much we can do. We do really try to emphasize to people that it's a backcountry ski trail, but it is it gets gets seasonal maintenance every year, and we do our best to make it a fun experience and pretty easy to follow out there.
So obviously skiing, but what are there any other uses?
Traditionally no, but that's changing.
Yeah.
And part of that honestly is driven by climate change.
Right.
And sort of some concerns there. And part of it's that particularly mountain bikers, are looking to expand their networks and to do the same thing that the Catamount Trail did for skiing, right?
Yeah.
Like Catamount Trail linked up all these communities. It linked up all these ski centers, these sort of nodes of skiing around the state. And mountain biking is in a similar place where they've got all these great local networks,
right?
And people really want to connect them. And so there's a project called the Vermont that's trying to build an end-to-end mountain bike trail. We've become really involved in that effort and are leveraging big chunks of the Catamount Trail in southern Vermont, where we're working with land managers that are really supportive and want to see co-location. And it's a great opportunity to bring more volunteers to the trail, bring additional dollars to the trail, and the kinds of things that they need to do to upgrade the trail for summer use, drainage work, culverts, ditching, bridges, boardwalks, are all things that make the trail ski way better in winters like this when we don't have a lot of snow. Right. And so it really is kind of a win for everybody. And
cool.
So we're doing a lot of work on that.
Making progress. Yeah.
So that brings up a good question about landowners, though. Are landowners a little hesitant about having mountain bikers as opposed to, summer terrain's fine, but are the mountain bikers going to do damage or something that the landowners are concerned with?
Some definitely are. Yeah. In southern Vermont, we don't work with a lot of private landowners. So we're working with, in southern Vermont in particular, we're along the Deerfield River, and there's a number of hydroelectric dams, and that's all owned by a hydroelectric company.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we're on national forest. Okay. So those are two land managers that have been really supportive, and really actually want to see fewer trail corridors and more sort of overlaying uses on a single corridor. And so it makes a lot of sense there. And we've communicated that to all of our landowners and said, this is what we're doing, and this is why. And it doesn't mean that the whole trail is going to get converted. And it won't, because A, there's landowners who aren't supportive, and B, you can put a winter trail in a lot of places you can't put a mountain bike trail or a hiking trail.
Right.
And just terrain-wise. And so we go through a lot of areas that we don't want to give up because they're spectacular in the winter, but you can't get there in the summer, and that's part of what makes the Catamount Trail and skiing special.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Cool.
I was going to ask you right there for a second. Outside of the climate, outside of weather, what's the biggest challenge the organization faces?
I think it's outside of climate change. It's a similar story for a lot of Vermont's a unique state in that a huge percentage of the recreational infrastructure is on private land and is managed by nonprofits. Yep. So if you go out west and you want to go for a hike, or you want to go skiing, or you want to go mountain biking, or you want to go paddling or whatever, most of the trailheads, most of the trails, most of that outdoor recreation infrastructure is on public land.
Yep.
It's on Forest Service land, it's on BLM land, whatever it is, right? And I think some places, are some of those western states like Utah are pushing up to like 80% public land.
Yeah.
And Vermont's the inverse.
Right.
So, it's just a different picture here, and it's the same for mountain bikers. It's the same for hiking. There's a constant challenge in getting people who use that infrastructure engaged in supporting the stewardship of it. And I think that some of that's education, it's outreach, it's all sorts of things. It's sort of helping people to understand that just because there's a public access trailhead doesn't mean that their tax dollars are supporting that, or that it's public land and they can do whatever they want. Right. That stewardship piece, and it goes both for supporting the organizations that make that infrastructure possible, but also the respecting the landowners who have opened up their land. There have been some incidents recently where people are just sort of treating trails on private land as if they own it.
Right. And it only takes one, right?
Right, and it only takes a couple bad experience, so that's, I think, the biggest challenge is just that. It's just engaging people in the stewardship of the trails and infrastructure they're using.
Yep. What do you see for the next 40 years, the CTA?
I think it's, I think it will be a dynamic 40 years for the organization, which is, a challenge, but also exciting. I think our biggest strength is really community. It's, this winter has just been a reminder of the incredible group of people that have built this organization, that are the reason the trail and the organization and all of our programming exists. I think it really has been a community grassroots effort in the best sense of that word. And so I think that there's a lot of value in that, and that the values of the organization, the conservation work, the programming work, the work to get people outside and just having fun and building community and connection to the landscape translates in lots of different ways. But I think we'll be doing more year-round use work. I think we'll be, the real estate pressures are growing. We'll be doing more conservation work, but I think it will be dynamic, and it's, frankly, hard to predict. Burlington in particular is like one of the fastest warming places in the country, and the changes in winter in the Champlain Valley have been pretty dramatic.
Yep.
We're a little buffered from that up high on the ridges and inland. But
didn't used to be able to grow peaches. Now we can grow peaches.
So it's, we'll have to see. And obviously as an organization, like, we can't. It's not an issue we can do much to influence the trajectory of.
Right.
And we're doing what we can on the resiliency front, but that's there's only so much we can do there too. And so we'll keep doing that. I'm really confident that we're going to have lots of great winners to come. But we'll have to see how it goes and sort of like a lot of things, continue to adapt and be creative and
and to keep the next 40 years going strong, you need. That's why the youth programs. It's because you think of an organization that's been around 40 years. I'm assuming there's a lot of aging original members and people that volunteer and do things, and now you need to get that next wave in of.
I mean, I think it's the right. I think it's exactly. And just keep building the sport and keep building, a passion and a love for winter. I think it's a really special thing. It's different, and just continuing to pull people into that and remind them how special it is and try to inspire them to be part of celebrating and protecting it. Is really like that's a role we can play that I think is important in its own right, but is also obviously critical to continuing to
definitely
support the organization.
Cool.
Do you have any questions?
No, I don't think so. I think we kind of touched on it all, and Travis said, I think the work you guys are doing on the youth side is awesome. I mean, that's very cool. And the project itself, I mean, I don't know that I truly understood everything to it, but I mean, that's amazing. And the fact that the guys that founded it could still do 2 weeks straight on the trail, also amazing. I don't know if I could do that right now, Is there anything we miss? Anything else you want to share with folks or,
No, I don't know.
And where can people go to find you, volunteer, help out?
That's what. Thank you for reminding me. Catamounttrail.org is our website. They can find us on Facebook, Instagram as well, of course. And look for the blue blazes as you're driving around the state.
What's more important, dollars or man hours?
Well, they're both critical, but I know it's interesting. Like nonprofits are still business, right? And I think that we would not exist without volunteers. We have a small staff, but we do a lot with a small staff. And I think that have sort of an outsized impact given our footprint there, and it is really critical, right? Like. Small nonprofits are really about they're about people and investing in people and the work that they can make happen. And so, yeah, we need both.
Need both.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this has been another episode of Vermonters in Business. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. This was a fun conversation, super unique,
Yeah.
And,
Definitely different than we're used to.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's great to
And
be here.
as we usually say, if anybody knows somebody that should be on our show, shoot them our way. We would love to reach out and see if we could have them join us for a conversation. Cool.
Thank you. Great.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Thanks, man.